Hark, my beloved, there he comes, leaping over mountains, bounding over hills. My beloved is like a gazelle, or like a young stag. There he stands behind our wall, gazing through the window, peering through the lattice. My beloved spoke thus to me, "Arise, my darling, my fair one, come away. For now the winter is past, the rains are over and gone, the blossoms have appeared in the land, the time of pruning has come. The song of the turtledove is heard in our land. The green figs form on the fig tree, the vines in blossom give off fragrance. Arise, my darling, my fair one, come away. The grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of the Lord lives forever. And this is the word of the Lord. All thanks be to God." As we read this in worship, I can't help but wonder if I'm the only one feeling a little uncomfortable about it. You can ask Megan, I am not the most romantic person in the world. At the same time, I am curious of what you all think about this book. If you're familiar with this book, how familiar you are with this book. What do you think that this book is about? Just holler out a word or two words or something. What is Song of Solomon about? Love? Love songs. Love songs between who? Two people. Oh, very cool. Any different answers to that? Because there's definitely different answers to that out in tradition. That's why I'm asking you that. Well, the reason I ask this is because traditionally this book is thought to be about Christ's love for the church, or God's love for Israel. It's a way to interpret this book to kind of bring it more into other traditional ideas. This book being like an allegory for us to think about as our love between us believers and with the Lord, as in Jesus Christ is the bridegroom and the church is the bride. So this is that fits. There is a connection there. Clearly there's biblical precedent. However, in this book, I'm not very comfortable with that idea, because if you actually read the book, some of the references seem a little, inappropriate. Take what we just heard. The church seeing Jesus running towards us, leaping over mountains, bounding over hills. Oh, yeah. And if that's not feeling a little out of place yet, is that not so bad? Well, how about Jesus standing behind the wall of your home, gazing through your window, peering through your lattice? You know, kind of like a peeping Tom or something. Might as well have him outside the window holding a boombox, playing a romantic love ballad for you. Dare I even point us back to other places in the book, like the start of the book in verse 2, the very beginning of the book. "Oh, give me the kisses of your mouth, for your love is more delightful than wine." The intoxicating love of Jesus? Well, okay, I guess, but not sure, at least in my opinion. I'd struggle with that, fitting that into, more regular theology. But I need to be careful here. I don't want to step on any toes of biblical interpretation. We are disciples. We believe in freedom of belief, freedom of interpretation, and maintaining in unity with one another, even when we disagree. But, I'm just saying, if this scripture really is about Jesus in the church, that makes me even more uncomfortable about doing this on Sunday morning. As if reading this, what sounds more like love poetry, in worship doesn't already seem out of place enough. So this love poem, as I would think it to be, and as Linda described also, I think it's pretty common to see that way. This is also very prevalent in tradition as well. Love poem between two young adults passionately in romantic love with each other. And seeing this as a love poem begs the question, why are we reading this for worship this morning? What is this book even doing in the Bible? It actually is very handy for marriage counseling, weddings, but not entirely sure what to do with it on Sunday morning. So here we are. Maybe we can start with the name of thinking about, the interesting stuff about this book. The Song of Songs, or the Song of Solomon. You might have heard it both ways. As you see in the picture, Song of Songs is another way that the Bible names it. And that first line of the book, before the second line we just read a second ago, the first line gives the reason why there's complication. Because the first line is the Song of Songs of Solomon. The greatest of songs, the song of all songs in poetry form, and it's of Solomon, attributed to Solomon as being the author. Either title works really, however, I prefer Song of Songs, even though I scheduled it as Song of Solomon. Our NRSV puts it as Song of Solomon, so to be consistent, I prefer Song of Songs. One, because of the importance of that song that this book and title is expressing, this love poetry, this passionate devotion towards one another, and that is this prized, beautiful songs. How popular are love ballads in the world today? They're very popular. They mean a lot to us in our relationships and so forth. So, and this is like a greatest version of it. So that's one reason I like it. Also, it's doubtful that Solomon actually wrote this. Again, you can take that as you will, but kind of my reasoning for that is, for starters, Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Was he really this passionate about just one? And, of course, his father David was very passionate about Bathsheba, but he messed things up pretty good with his complicated love life. So, was Solomon the author, or was this attributed to him because of the wisdom it teaches about, this love between two people? Now, remember that attributing a writing to another person was not a problem in the ancient world. It was very normal in the ancient world, as long as it's true to what that person might have taught, as long as it's fitting with their body of work that they gave while they were alive. It's common in the Bible, it's common in other ancient writings at the time. That's more of a problem for us, where we think that's an issue. But for them, that was not actually a problem. Now, answer that question, however you want. Remember, we're disciples. There's freedom of belief. We don't have to agree. Whether Solomon wrote it or what it's actually about. Just remember that as disciples, with that freedom, we should never go all willy-nilly with our freedom of belief. You should always be able to back up what you believe, to reason it out based on other things you find in Scripture and so forth. And in seminary, you get grilled pretty hard about why you believe what you believe. And that's an important thing for us, having that freedom. But moving on, there's something very cool about this book, and especially in thinking about maybe if Solomon didn't write it, because the main speaker in this book is a woman. And it's hard for me to imagine Solomon taking on the woman's perspective as it does so strongly in this book. And that's awesome to me because, women didn't get to have much of a voice, even in the Bible. At the time, throughout history, we're still fighting that battle today. The Bible breaks that mold in some ways and revolutionizes the status of women as being so much more than any kind of property as they were in the culture at the time. Fully equal and sometimes even better than the men. Remember Deborah, the prophet in the book of Judges. Remember Mary, the mother of Jesus. Remember Mary Magdalene. Remember other women standing by Jesus at the cross when the men had scattered. Remember Phoebe, mentioned by Paul as a deacon to be listened to. Yet at the same time, the Bible also hushes women's voices and leaves important women nameless. So it's a little confusing if you look at the whole Bible on what perspective we should take about women. But, this book makes it very clear that what the woman here has to say is extremely important and needs to be included here in the Bible. So there's something to help us be a little more comfortable with this reading today, right? A little something. And another thing that I think fits Sunday morning pretty well is this theme of seeking and finding. Throughout Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, these two are always seeking each other out and are always finding each other. It's like the world's trying to drive them apart, but their love is too strong and they find each other, and it happens over and over again. The world keeps these two young lovers apart in a variety of ways, yet they are seeking and finding each other over and over again, caring not for the world, purely driven by that deep sense of love for one another. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door will be answered. You know, if only they were allowed to be together, the young man wouldn't have to just gaze inside the window. You know, he could knock on the door and she could answer the door and you can guarantee it would be open for him and she'd be letting him in with love. Something we talk about in marriage counseling is how devoted these two are to each other. These two mean the absolute universe to each other. And yes, this book sometimes also reads like a dirty romance novel. But it still fits in the Bible. There's just some references that make you question a little bit, like, whoa, what's that doing here? But Paul encourages that physical relationship between a couple in that kind of covenantal relationship, a married couple, however you want to describe that. While Christian traditions have demonized human sexuality a lot over these past thousands of years, the Jewish tradition is actually very clear that being fruitful and multiplying is a good thing. A very special thing between two people sharing a covenant of love, being married or whatever. The physical part of the relationship includes that sexual intimacy, but is actually a whole lot more than that too. It's also hugs and kisses, sitting close to each other with your knees touching, whispering sweet nothings in each other's ears. It's about giving each other your whole selves in love, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and of course physically. Put your whole selves into your love. As the woman speaks, my beloved spoke thus to me, arise, my darling, my fair one, come away. You can tell that these two lovers are enamored simply by the opportunity, the idea to give them their full selves to each other. And the words he uses to describe his feelings toward her call to mind the beauty of springtime. This is how wonderful it is to give and receive your whole selves in love. The winter is past, the rains are gone, the blossoms appeared in the land, and the song of the turtle dove is heard. Two turtle doves singing their love to each other. Green figs, vines blooming, giving off their sweet fragrance. Life is good for these two because they have each other, even if it requires sneaking over for visits to each other, dealing with the consequences if they get caught. Their love is too powerful to be stopped, even by the biggest hill or the most gigantic mountain in the way. Whether it be the themes of how important the woman's voice actually is, or seeking and finding, or giving our full selves to each other in love, or simply appreciating the beauty and joy of love as we appreciate the gorgeous spring after a long winter. All this does relate to the love we share with each other and with the Lord. Not the marital relations part, of course, so much of, except for that being a healthy part of a covenantal romantic relationship. All those are very, very good reasons for this to be in the Bible and for us to talk about it on Sunday morning. So as we go forward with these scripture verses today, this beautiful poetry, let us remember James speaking in the scripture Linda just read, even including the line that I had forgot to include in there for her to read. Giving your full self in love is an absolutely perfect gift from above. A solid way to be doers of the word, not just hearers. And likewise, let us remember our homework from Reverend Garrett last week. Yes, I saw the video. I know you had homework. Hebrews 10:19-39. Let us remember that about being confident in how God gave God's full self to us in love in the person of Jesus Christ, and be confident in the giving of our full selves back to God and to each other in love, just as Jesus taught us. Through all the ways we give ourselves in love, may God's very good creation be blessed. And may all hear the song of the turtle dove in our lands.